Hey, I'm Kevin. She's Wendy. In June of 2022, we spent 6 days on the island of Antigua in the Caribbean. Officially, the country is called Antigua and Barbuda after its two main islands, but on this trip, we only visited Antigua. Part of the Lesser Antilles chain of the West Indies, Antigua lies here, where the Caribbean and Atlantic meet. For reference, it's around 1,300 miles southeast of Miami. Throughout this series, I'll be including costs for everything we kept track of, along with our strategies, advice, and suggestions on how to plan, research, and book amazing travel experiences on a reasonable budget. Our hope is to encourage and inform people who want to travel but think that it's out of reach. Now, there are no direct flights from the west coast of the U.S., so we first flew from San Francisco to JFK in New York. Most of the flights to JFK from San Francisco leave early in the morning, which would have meant a layover of 20 hours or more. We didn't have that kind of time on this trip, so the only real option was to leave the night before, and that meant cutting it kind of close to make our connection. We chose a JetBlue flight out of SFO at 9:50 Tuesday night, scheduled to arrive 6:30 a.m. Wednesday, and that left us only about 90 minutes to make the connection. That's half our usual minimum. Luckily, we arrived in New York like half an hour early, which is great, but still, we had to make our way down to baggage claim in Terminal 5, then back and up to the air train for the ride to Terminal 8, where not only was the escalator broken as in not moving.
I like an escalator, man, because an escalator can never break. It can only become stairs.
It was also broken as in missing an entire step. Not fun with heavy luggage. The women at the American Airlines counter were great, checking our dive bag in no time to get us to our gate ASAP. We made it just in time, but only because our first flight arrived so early. Way too close for comfort. Only two airlines fly to Antigua from JFK, JetBlue and American. Both have only one flight a day, and JetBlue only Friday through Monday, whereas American has one every day. We were arriving on a Wednesday, so American was our only option, and that flight leaves at 8 o'clock in the morning. Non-stop, coast to coast, for both of us on JetBlue was $495. Just $247 a piece during peak season in the U.S. That's a great price. The flight from JFK to Antigua totaled out at $422. So the total airfare from California to Antigua for two people came to $917. Details like these are what drove me to make travel content in the first place. I started traveling later in life than I would have liked because I felt like traveling was only for rich people. And a lot of folks on social media are heavily invested in making people believe that garbage. Meeting Wendy brought a new perspective, which is glaringly simple, but is also undeniably the reason we've been able to make 6 trips touching 8 countries in under 5 years. It's about priorities. What do you want to spend your money on? For example, I am Gen X to my core, okay? I love convenience. I used to be happy to pay $3.50 for a 20-ounce cup of drip coffee, just for the convenience of not having to buy the coffee, make the coffee, clean the coffee maker, wash the cup. That cup of coffee, 5 days a week, 52 weeks a year, because working people don't take vacations, right? That adds up to $910. I've just shown that with that money and like a little change from the couch cushions, you could fly 2 people from the west coast of the US to an amazing island in the Caribbean during peak travel season. What if you also stopped going to the movies or eating at restaurants? What if you stopped buying clothes you don't actually need? Is there a monthly subscription you could live without? When we went on our first trip in 2019, I was still smoking cigarettes, a habit I'd had for like 30 years and really, really enjoyed, and which was already disgustingly expensive. The idea of putting the savings towards further travel definitely helped me get through the quitting process. So when I stopped smoking, a pack of cigarettes here in California was like $8, if memory serves. And I smoked at least a pack a day. So I saved over $3,000 the first year. Between the coffee and the cigarettes, that's over $4,000 that year without really changing my life much. Arguably, I'd improved it. And I'm only half the equation. When you realize the compounding effect this method has, it's pretty easy to let go of frivolous expenses. But the thing is, if you want to splurge and have a blowout weekend, you totally can. The rules are yours. We also live within our means. Wendy drives a 19-year-old Jeep, and I drive a 12-year-old Camry, so neither of us have a car payment. We do live in the least affordable housing market on the planet, so that's a struggle. But both of us pay on the less asinine side for rent, all things considered. And we make most of our spending decisions based on how it will affect our travel plans. We almost never go out to eat, for example, maybe twice a year. That and working hard to maintain good credit are the only way we could possibly afford to travel the way we do. The background behind me is a photo of a map that takes up most of a wall in Wendy's cottage. It contains dozens of carefully placed pins. Most mark destinations we're dreaming about. Others are places we're actively planning to visit, and some are places we've been. When we return from a trip, we replace the existing pin with a gold one to indicate that we've been there together. If you're interested in more about our budgeting process, how we research, plan, and book our trips, or anything else, hit us up in the comments section or at lifeofrileypod@gmail.com. Okay, so the running tally so far looks like this. Airfare to Antigua, $917. Long-term airport parking, $126. Travel insurance, $352. So, in order to reach Antigua that day, we had spent just under $1,400. A good chunk of it being costs that most channels don't even talk about. See, here at home, we choose to drive ourselves to and from the airport. Our flights often arrive or depart at crazy hours for people who work for a living. So we choose not to ask friends or family to drive us. The trip to San Francisco Airport is around 66 miles, but a good chunk of that is on windy mountain roads, so it takes like 90 minutes. A typical shuttle from Santa Cruz is $145 one way, plus a $25 fee if it's before 7 a.m. or after 10 p.m., which it is most of the time. So round trip, that's $340 before tip. Uber ranges anywhere from $85 to $150 one way, so now we're talking around $230 before tip. So we take the Camry, which uses less than a quarter tank for the round trip, and long-term parking is in a secured garage with an AirTrain station. On this trip, we spent well below $150, including gas, to get to and from SFO, while able to leave when we want and walk straight to the car upon our return. So yeah, we pay to leave the car at the airport. In our opinion, travel insurance is super important. If you disagree and want to roll the dice, you do you. If you'd like me to talk about our thoughts on travel insurance in a future video, let us know in the comments or drop us an email. Once we'd gotten through customs and baggage claim, we were picked up by a guy from the rental car company who drove us the 4 whole minutes to Drive-O-Matic car rental. We had booked months ahead and paid $291 for 6 days, or $48.50 a day. It's a little more than we usually spend for a rental car, but considering the time of year, it was the best price we found on Antigua that was from a company that we trusted. When booking anything, spend some quality time reading reviews. This is especially true for car rental agencies. There are a lot of shysters in that business who offer what appear to be amazing rates only to screw you with hidden fees. Or even worse, accuse you of damaging the car and then they bomb your credit card for charges you technically signed off on when you rented. Going through reviews will shed light on these shady operators and guide you toward agencies with excellent reputations. Even then, I always spend a few minutes going over the car with the rep, noting any existing dents, dings, and scratches. My last move is to walk around the car taking video to have a time-stamped, ironclad record of the car's condition when we picked it up. Familiarize yourself with what your credit card, auto insurance, and/or travel insurance cover regarding rental cars. We're big advocates of covering whatever contingencies we can, but there's no reason to spend money on something you're already covered for. In the case of this rental car, we initially signed up for the additional coverage, but canceled it when we confirmed that we were already covered. So keep that in mind, that that's an option. When we got to the rental car place, I WhatsApped our contact on the island, Mervin, to let him know we'd arrived. He showed up to lead us to our lodgings just as we were finalizing the paperwork. We asked him to first show us the way to a supermarket for some groceries. It was about 4 miles to the Perry Bay supermarket, where we bought far more food than we should have. Being our first interaction with a large group of locals, we couldn't have asked for a more positive experience. My favorite anecdote is from when we were making our way down an aisle that was blocked by a group of teenagers. I tensed up a little, knowing how the teenagers here at home treat not just adults in general, but tourists in particular. So I was impressed as hell when the group parted and bade us welcome one by one as we passed. That is essentially the energy of Antigua in a nutshell. I knew in that instant I was going to love it there. Once we'd loaded the car, Mervin led us the final 10 minutes to our lodgings at Galley Bay Cottages. Of course, we'd seen the pictures online when we booked, but until you actually set eyes on a place, there's always some trepidation. Wendy's research had once again paid off. There's like 3 or 4 cottages on the property, and we had chosen the treehouse. It's not the biggest, it doesn't have the best view, it's not the most expensive, but it looked to be a perfect fit for us. And it 100% was. The private driveway, the wraparound balcony, the view, the grill, the kitchen, the air conditioning, which we barely used, to be honest. And I mean, just look at the adorable bed. This place set us back $621 for 5 nights, which is just over $124 a night. For those of you keeping track, we are now at $2,307. To put that in perspective, let's have a look from above. This property on the water is called Galley Bay Resort and Spa. It's adults only and all-inclusive. It's super, super nice. This beach is one of the 365 public beaches on Antigua. So while this resort might be all-inclusive, it isn't as exclusive as one might think. We could, and did, walk down for a dip, along with plenty of locals. I'm writing this video in June of 2024, and I looked at booking a room a year from now for 5 nights at that resort. So June of 2025. And here, I took a screen recording of the map on booking.com. See that? Nearly $5,000. $1,000 a night for 2 people. And look over here. See this? The treehouse is right here. Unavailable for those dates, but there it is. Now, I'm not trying to say the 2 properties are comparable, but I can tell you that we'd rather stay at the treehouse any day. And the deal we got clearly has nothing to do with the neighborhood. If you've seen our previous videos, you know we're not much for luxury accommodations. We're more interested in getting out and doing shit, and eating when we want to, and not dealing with obnoxious neighbors or elevators running behind our headboard in a so-called luxury hotel. Anyway, we thanked Mervyn for his help, put away the groceries, unpacked our bags, and did a little exploring around the cottage. Not long after that, I fell asleep literally in mid-sentence and well before the sun went down. I'd been up for around 40 hours at that point. Luckily, I was on the bed at the time, so Wendy arranged the mosquito netting around me and went outside to admire the neighborhood bats. Bats are awesome for a lot of reasons. These bats were especially great because they were feasting on the mosquitoes that wanted to feast on Wendy. As usual, we had an early start the next day. The Antigua Reef Riders in Jolly Harbor were expecting us first thing in the morning. That and more is coming up in the Antigua series. Like and comment to tickle the algorithm, and subscribe so you don't miss future content. Thanks as always for watching. Take care.